In this video, we are going to discuss how to play the French defense opening, and we are going to check it out by looking at a game played between Nepomniachtchi versus Nikita Vitiugov from the Russian Superfinals, round number 9. This game was played in the 7th of December 2014, and all the French defense players get ready to watch an incredible game, and I think this video is going to help you to improve your chess skills. So let's start. So, Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces started out the game with 1 e4, and Nikita with the black pieces replied with e6. d4, d5, we have the French, and here comes the moment. Yep, there are many variations from this position. There is French advance, there is French exchange, there is this knight c3, there is this knight d2. I think these 4 variations, or even bishop to d3, these 5 variations are the most popular ones. We have the knight to c3 variation by Nepomniachtchi. After knight to c3, there are 3. You can say there are 3 natural moves in the position, or you can say there are 3 common moves in the position to continue the game. This capturing the pawn on e4. Second, there is to play knight f6, and third is to play bishop to b4. Capturing the pawn on e4, which many players does, is not a good thing, because after knight to e4, you are basically giving a full control of the center to the white. White is having a very nice pawn on the d4, as well as a very nice knight on the e4. I'm not saying that it is bad, but black doesn't get a decent position, because we have knight f6 takes knight f3, and white idea to play bishop g5, hitting the queen. So black plays h6, but in the end, white is actually one who is actually having a very pleasant position. You can go for playing knight to f6, and we have push, knight to d7, f4 c5, and black tries to put pressure on the pawn on d4, and I think it's a pretty fine opening. But in the game we have bishop b4, and bishop b4 is actually the best. The reason bishop b4 is the best, first of all, in the bishop b4 variation there is a large amount of theory, and in the end of the theory you get a very decent position from the black side. That is the purpose of showing you the French defense, this Winawer variation of the French defense. After bishop to b4, we have the Winawer variation, e5, a very common setup. Black plays c5. The idea of playing French defense is to play the c5, putting pressure on the pawn on d4. We have e3 by white, complete theory. All those who don't know how to play the French defense, or who are watching this new variation at the first time, if white tries to capture the pawn, first of all, capturing the pawn is not a good move. Second, capturing the pawn, just don't become so anxious that you simply capture the pawn, because many low-level players simply go for capturing the pawn, which is not a good idea. I think you can even go for capturing this knight, and after bc3 you can say white is having this so bad pawn structure, having 3 pawns in a single line, and I think black can simply continue the position playing knight e7, queen c7, attacking these 2 pawns, and I think it's pretty good position for black. Ian decided to play a3. We have takes bc3, and here we have knight e7, a very common setup. If white tries to capture the same position lines, where white is having a very bad pawn structure and black faces no problem, we have queen to g4, a very nice move and the most natural move. All those who don't know the line or don't know the theory gets completely shocked after seeing this queen g4 move, because white is simply attacking the pawn on g7. And if you try to castle a shot, it looks like, yeah, it's completely fine. And even Indians say that it's a completely fine position, but what will you do if your opponent tries to play h4? My idea is to play rook h3, rook g3, and it's all over. You can't do a single thing. You can't even play knight to g6 to attack to stop this attack. I can simply play h5, and it's already over for black. That is the reason. Although Indians say that castle is actually the best move, but I think white is still better, and it's even bishop h6 is coming up, and yeah, black is already in a huge trouble. The line says, or you can say the theory says, to play pawn takes queen to d4. You can even go for playing queen to c7, allowing white to go for this capturing the pawn on g7. After queen c7, it's also a fine move because we have takes, pawn takes, and the line goes on. Not to capture this pawn. First playing rook g8, attacking this queen. Pawn takes, and then pawn takes, and the line continues. But we have first c into d4 by Nikita, which is also a complete fine move. Queen into g7, capturing the pawn, also hitting the rook. Rook g8, protected by the knight, hitting the queen. Queen into h7, and here we have queen to c7. It looks like black can capture this pawn. Definitely, you can go for capturing the pawn, but after capturing the pawn on c3, you do not get anything concrete. Queen c7 gives white the option, and also you also open up your options as well because you're now attacking the pawn on e5, also attacking the pawn on c3. Capturing the pawn on c3 with the queen is the main idea because you hit the king and the rook. So after queen c7, we have knight e2 by white. Idea of playing knight e2 in this position is, first of all, white cannot capture this pawn because queen c3 simply loses the rook for white. That is why we have knight e2 protecting both the squares of d4 and c3. Still capturing the pawn here is not a good move, and capturing the e5 pawn doesn't also a good move because c into d4 and white is better, completely winning actually. So we have knight to c6, developing another knight, and after knight to c6, here we have f4. And the idea of playing knight c6 in this position is now black is aiming for capturing the pawn on e5. And if every one of you thinking that what will happen if white simply captures the pawn? Yep, white pawn structure is actually very nice, and black even can't capture the pawn on d4 because the knight is protecting it. But actually, we can go for capturing the pawn. Knight into, and here we have, sorry, not this, it's completely losing because here we have bishop e3. Bishop protects the knight, there is no check, and white is winning. But after knight into d4, we give queen to c3 check, hitting the rook and the king. King e2 takes, and black is winning. That is why capturing this pawn is not a good idea. So we have f4 the best move, and it's all theory up until now. We still have d into c3, still theory. h4. So white tries to advance his pawn on h5 because it's the pass pawn. Bishop d7. Black is aiming for long castle. Queen to d3. Pulling the queen back and also aiming for capturing the pawn on c3. And here we have d4. Many of you were thinking why white was not capturing this pawn on c3 for a long time. The reason white was not capturing this pawn with the knight was after knight into e5, basically queen hits the knight and it's black who is completely winning. That was the reason. Now queen d3, and here we have d4. Black is defending the pawn, and it's still theory. It's still theory. We have d4. If white tries to capture the pawn, we have knight d4, queen d4, and we have knight f5. And f5 pawn, f5 square is the best outpost for the knight. Yeah, hitting the queen. Like white can never play g4 because the rook is simply covering the square. Black is simply better in this position. Yeah, black can simply long castle bishop c6. Black is completely winning. That is why here we have h5, long castle, rook to b1. So white decide to attack. King b8, g3. Definitely white wants to play bishop to g2, attack this fight, attack this diagonal. Bishop c8, bishop g2, and here we have b6. Bishop to f3, and here bishop b7. Just how you see, after a long castle, black decided to develop this bishop to b7, which is actually the best square. And now you can see how safe black king is. It's actually, I think, many of you watching this video who are just new to the French defense, it's completely, I think, completely a heaven position because in the French defense, many times, I also play French defense mostly, like 99% of the time. So I also feel, yeah, like very passive many times. But in the Winawer variation, you must try this opening out. Black is completely winning in this position. Yeah, we have bishop b7, g4. So white tries to push his queen side, king side pawns. We have knight to a5, asking for a bishop trade. White decide to play rook h3. We have a bishop trade, knight to b7, h6. It looks like a white pawn is coming, but don't be afraid. Simply, you can say that white king is in the center, and in the Winawer system, or you can say in the Winawer variation, the in the high levels, or you can say many times, if your opponent knows the line, the king is in the center. So try to attack in the center, yeah, because your opponent is going to play on the king side, and if you don't try to open up the center, you can't do a thing. So just try to go for the king. You can say the king is in the center, so open up the center. Knight c5. Now idea could be to play d3 at any moment. h7, rook h8, queen g2. You can say the pawn is on h7, but he can't do anything. Queen d7, f5. So Jan is like, I'm finally going to open up the position, but now comes incredible move, or you can say the plan, which Nikita was preparing, opening up the king by playing d3. Knight is attacked, push is coming. White decide to capture the pawn on c3. If you try to capture this pawn, I can simply play knight d3, king f1. I can simply play c2, hitting the rook. Rook a1 takes, rook takes, queen check. Capturing the queen doesn't make sense because you will simply lose a rook. So we have king f2, rook d7, rook d2, and now black is preparing to capture this knight or the rook. It's already over, so we have takes, takes. It's completely winning for black. So cd3 is not working. We have knight to c3, knight into c3, and here we have queen to d4 by Nikita. Idea is to hit the get the knight. And here we have king to d2. There are many variations. There are many moves to play for white in the position. Although it's completely losing for white, but still there are many moves to continue the position. Even if you try to play something like knight to b5, removing the knight, I can still play d into c2, hitting the rook. And after, you can say, after knight takes, I can simply make a queen. It's winning. Or even if you try to, like, for example, if you try to capture this pawn, I can still play queen g1 check, king e2, and here we have queen g2 check. You lose the rook. It's already over. So we have king to d2 by Nepo. Knight to d5, asking for a knight trade, or else black is going to have a free knight. Knight takes, and now we have first a check. Yeah, because now knight is no longer on c3, so we have knight to e4 check, king d1, and now finally black decide to capture the knight, and now knight c3 is already very deadly. Yeah, you lose the queen on, you lose the queen by discover attack on g2. So Nepo decided to move the king. Queen to a2, incredible move by Nikita, hitting the rook, and now even the pawn is hanging. Everything is falling apart. Have rook into b6 check. If white tries to capture this knight, we still have queen into b1. So Nepo thought, why not to simply grab a pawn? Takes, and now we have queen into e4. And simply queen b1. A very calm move. And after queen b1, this pawn is extremely strong. So we have this pawn take, because even if you try to defend it, I can simply play this. Even d2 winning, d into c2 is winning. Let's take takes, and yep, rook d1 is simply crushing. So we have pawn takes, and now we have takes, king e2, rook c8, getting this open file. Black is simply a rook plus. King comes, rook comes, king move, check, check, takes. That's takes. The queen cannot capture. The queen is hanging. The pawn cannot capture. It's a check. There is nothing to do. So we have rook a1, rook h1 by Nepo hitting the queen, but black simply captured the queen. And after f into e4, on the move number 39, Nepomniachtchi with the white pieces resigned the game, and I must tell you that Nepomniachtchi himself played the French defense many times. Even if you try to capture the queen, I can simply capture this pawn, and you can say I'm simply a rook plus, and it's completely winning position for black. So that was the reason after f into e4 is signed, and I want to discuss one thing, that many players who plays the French defense likes to play this knight f6 variation, and after here f4, they many times come in the under the bad position. So I think I get a solution for you. Just go for playing Winawer variation and simply crush your opponent. That's how it is. This was a phenomenal game played by Nikita Vitiugov against Ian Nepomniachtchi, who is extremely strong grandmaster from Russia. Even Nikita is from Russia. A fantastic game, yeah. So if you like this game, and you can say basically the idea of making this video was to uh, get the idea how to play the correct French variation, because there are many French players. Even I myself play sometimes with the wrong variation. But after watching this game, I am going to play the Winawer variation. I'm going to play the bishop to b4 variation. It's extremely cool. You sacrifice a pawn on b7, g7, and you simply go for the king, and it's all over. So just make sure to try at your tournaments and on the online platforms for the chess.com, or you can send least shares. So I'm going to come up with these interesting videos for you. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching One Shot Chess. And make sure to subscribe the channel, share this video with everyone, and click the like button as well. So see you soon.